Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ivan Peñane. It's 14:01. We will be starting in the next minute. We're just allowing people to walk into the room. It's 14:02. We'll start at around about 14:03. Just sit back and relax. For your information, this event is being recorded. It is also live streaming on YouTube. And so if you ask any questions or if you participate, please note that all our comments and our discussions will be on our beamed on our YouTube channel, which we intend to keep for some time to come. I will officially open in the next minute, and may all our speakers be ready to carry on with the program. Due to storms that are raging in many parts of the country today, and due to load shedding, we'll try to keep the program. We normally do 1.5 hours. We could probably do just about an hour or shortly after that, so that we do not approach 3:30, 4 o'clock, and some people might be cut off. Whilst I'm the host and I'm chairing here, I am not anticipating any load shedding or so for the next hour or so, but there are 4 other co-drivers of this. Tandos Tole will take over as the facilitator should I be cut off, and do not worry, this event will run just like that. Thank you. We will be starting now in 3, 2, 1. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ivan Peñane. I am the chairperson of the Drone Council of South Africa. Today, focus is on South African drone regulations and economic inclusion. As we start, before we start with our program, here is what we need to remind ourselves of. 1, this is the 4th event in the past 4 weeks. We've been running our Drone Wednesday events since beginning of November, and we will have the last one next Wednesday. But we had said that we need to start, today we'll take a different focus. Today is the 7th of December, 2022. The 7th of December is International Civil Aviation Day. What is International Civil Aviation Day? It's a day that commemorates the fact that in 1944, it was just towards the end of the Second World War, about 54 countries were convened by the US in Chicago in what is to sign the International Civil Aviation Convention, which is now called, which is also known as the Chicago Convention. And with the ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, having been established and being the international regulator for civil aviation, every year on the 7th of December, all member states in aviation, they celebrate International Civil Aviation. You might have seen in our Facebook page and all other platforms, we explain more details about today. So hence, we're saying today, South Africa has been one of those member states of ICAO. It will be amiss of us if we do not get to ask the question, how has aviation been inclusive in South Africa? Specifically, we are not in general aviation, we're not in broad aviation, but we are specifically in the drone economy. So today we're asking the question, as we gather so many years later, on the 7th of December, 2022, what is the impact? What is the economic impact of the drone economy or what will be the anticipated economic inclusion of the drone economy in South Africa. So while we'll be talking about regulations, but at the back of our mind, or we will foreground the discussion around drone regulations, but we will background the discussion around economic inclusion. And we ask that we all relax. We do not just throw stones at one another, but we debate. Don't raise an issue, then when we ask you, what do you mean? Then you run away, but put the issues on the table. Those that are not here today will be able to get the details of our discussions on YouTube. Having said that about the celebration of International Civil Aviation Day, we will keep on talking as we go along. Let's outline the program for today. And the program for today is that I will outline what we will be focusing on briefly in about a minute or two. Then after that, we will ask one or two of our interns, our graduate interns, to share with us their expectations for today and to reflect around these issues that we're talking about today as introductory remarks. Then we'll stop. After that, we will then open the floor to leaders or who are in the GIBS program. GIBS is the Gordon Institute of Business Studies, one of our business schools that is based in Sandton. There's a cohort that is focusing on the drone economy at GIBS, and we will introduce them when we get to that point. It's 4 of them. They will take a total of 10 to 12 minutes at different aspects. So it will be around about 2.5 minutes or so per person, but they will take maximum 12 minutes of them reflecting on drone regulations, on the drone economy, and on economic inclusions. That will be around about 20 past 2 or 25 past 2. Then we'll get to the presentations that by Mr. Little and Ms. Anslin to say, at the end of today, we should ask the question, whilst last week we asked the question, what about drone regulations? Today we ask the question, so what? Now that you have told us what they are, what is the economic relevance for those that feel excluded about the economy? As I start, I will just raise a few issues for us to make sure that we're in the same bus, that we do not get on the wrong bus. The issues that we should be asking ourselves is that we spoke last week about what drone regulations are. Yes, people know about the Drone Council. As you know, our website is www.dronecouncil.africa, www.dronecouncil.africa. Talking about economic inclusion, some define it as follows, is that an inclusive economy means that everyone can contribute in that economy and earn with fair access to resources and opportunity. Therefore, why? Why are you even talking to us about an inclusive economy that contribute, where everyone can contribute and earn with fair access to resources and opportunity? Others say economic inclusion means that all consumers have access to fair, safe, secure, and affordable financial products and services. Why is it an issue in South Africa? We can talk about transformation loosely, and you only mean employment equity. That is transformation. You might talk about transformation in a market, you only mean more shares in the stock exchange for others that have been excluded. But in this instance, there are issues that we talk about that while South Africa adopted the drone regulations in 2015, was the first country to have drone regulations adopted. We look back and say, 7 years later in 2022, has the drone economy been inclusive? If we're saying there's about 90 ROCs, for an example. The question is that how many of those are owned by women? I'm speaking as a man first. How many of those are owned by women? And how many of those are owned by Black people in general? How many of those are owned by disabled people? How many of those are owned by rural people? Inclusivity also includes the urban rural divide. So we say, how do we ensure that the divides are being dealt with? At a meeting with the minister, the Deputy Minister of Economic Development, when the drone dialogues were launched some 3 years ago, just before the Drone Council was launched, we were asked nicely by government that if you guys are saying there's 90 ROCs and about 99% of them are owned by white companies and male-owned owners, please come back to us if you want government support. Come back to us when you've got at least 50% ownership of the industry, or you must show that there are proper steps to do that. But there are other dynamics. Inclusion includes youth, includes rural, etc., as we said. And we want to engage with those issues and say, what needs to be done? What is to be done? No pointing fingers, but the question is, what is to be done for the industry to be economically inclusive? Is there anything wrong with us? Is there anything wrong with the industry? Is there anything wrong with the regulator? Or is there anything wrong with the regulations? Or is there anything wrong with the economy and the uptake? And that's what we'll be talking about today. I will stop here for now and say, can we say today we celebrate the International Civil Aviation Day by discussing economic inclusion in aviation, economic inclusion in specifically drone economy, which is part of aviation. I will therefore start now with our speakers. I will start from the interns. They will log in and introduce themselves. Donald will just come on board, and then I will introduce the GIPS team after that. The GIPS team will come as a panel and talk to us as a panel, and from there we will go to the speakers. Over to you, Donald. Donald Tobejane. Is there a problem with Mr. Donald Tobejane not being able to come? If Donald has got a network problem, because I can see him here, we will not wait for him. No. Mr. Donald Tobejane, you are muted. I'll count up to 3, say, and we'll go to the GIPS team. Interns, please come on board. If Donald is battling, who else was supposed to come after him? I'll count 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go to the next team. No, it's not just inclusiveness. The discussion is that we are discussing regulations, but we are saying, amongst other issues, it's a what is the issue? How can we make drone regulations to be more inclusive? I'm responding to a question. How do we make them more inclusive, more diverse, more flexible? I will quote once I meet Mr. Kubega, you are noted. A few years back, there was, not long ago, let me say a few years back, not long ago, there was a conference in Cape Town. We had the World Economic Forum. We had the Minister of Innovation in Rwanda and many other speakers who were talking. And one of the things that they raised at that conference was they do believe that drones, the title of this article says the drone economy may be Africa's next 4IR gem. Look for it, just say the drone economy 4IR gem. And all the delegates from the World Economic Forum, from Rwanda and from other countries, all of them, the comments they made was that we have seen the leapfrogging that happened with the mobile phone adoption. It wasn't just a lower cost and lower complexity for rural communication, but also innovation around that. So when we think about drones, it's a similar leapfrogging application. I think it can have a significant impact, he said. That was a speaker from the World Economic Forum who said they believe that drones will leapfrog. They will see the leapfrogging of that application. The jury is out, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Sanele Kupega, your hand was up. Are you the one taking over from Donald?
Good afternoon, Chair. Hope everyone is okay. I can step in for him, or I have some questions to say that I hope that the speakers that will speak today will be able to address and be able to cover. With your permission, Chair, can I go ahead?
Go ahead, sir, and the GIBS team must be ready now. I'll introduce them after you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it should, for me, what I would probably, I look forward to get in the inclusiveness of the economy. Probably in South Africa, if the speakers would be able to address to say currently, what is the economical value of the drone industry in its current form, the players that are involved, challenges that are faced by the players that are involved in the drone economy. I'm also looking forward to also hearing speakers to touch on the involvement of young people. I think when you talk about drones and 4IR, I don't think we can be able to engage without involving young people, given that the technology tends to be much more accepted by young people in general, and young people tend to understand it better. So what are the enablers that are currently there for young people to partake in the drone economy? And also, it would be interesting to know that out of the companies that have ROCs, how many of those companies are young people? By young people, I mean people who are really below the age of 35, the inclusiveness of women, and if all those quotas probably are not met, or those sectors are not covered within the ROCs, what is the plan, or what is the engagement of the Drone Council to try and assist to ensure that the drone economy is open, is inclusive to everyone to be able to partake and to provide the necessary support that is required? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. By the way, when you talk about difficult subjects, or let me say challenging subjects like inclusiveness, we need to then think, put our thinking caps and say exactly what do we mean. The Rwanda Minister of ICT and Innovation, Mr. Paula Ngabire, says their country, so she says her country was able to draft and implement regulations quickly. By the way, they took them from us. That's why they did it quickly. But the key point is that it was because of the willingness from different players to understand the risks without neglecting potential technology advantages. So they balance the risks that are involved and the advantages. In other words, they acknowledged the pull factors and the push factors, and they looked at what is best for the country. Therefore, the issue is not about pointing fingers, it's about what is to be done in 2023. What is your understanding of catch-up 2023? Having said that, now, as I said last week to colleagues, that the TITA, being the Transport Education and Training Authority, has a program for leadership development. And there were different programs for leadership development, executive leadership development, senior international leadership development, etc. And the partner is the GIBS, Golden Institute of Business School. That is the business school of the University of Pretoria. Among the groups that they have an interesting group that is focusing on the drone economy. And that cohort is constituted by four, amongst others, the four people that will be here today. Ms. Notando Mohadime spoke last week, and there's Viresh Sadio, there's Dumisane Mwabe, and there's Tembiso Lifakane. I will leave it to them to take the stage, the four of them, in their order. They will go back to back. They will be engaging with us. They've asked last week that they wanted to ask us difficult questions. They also want to start difficult debates and ask difficult questions, and also provide and give answers to difficult questions that we'll be asking. Over to you, Ms. Tembiso Lifakane, Notando Mohadime, Viresh Sadio, Dumisane Mwabe from KIPS.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to the forum. My name is Tembiso Lifakane. I'm part of the GIBS Syndicate Group that's looking into how we can speed up uptake and commercialization of drone technology and the drone economy. I'm going to speak on just two parts of things that we've identified in our research. I think one of the big things that came out in our research in terms of regulations and in terms of the one that we looked at was the air service license. And what came to the fore in that is that we realized with the air service license, the regulations mirror the manned aviation regulations. And for that, it's a prohibitive factor for new participants in the industry, whereas there's quite a lot of requirements to meet the drone, to get your air service license. And also one of the big prohibiting factors is the cost behind meeting all those requirements and those licensing requirements. And, that is a big barrier of entry for, your drone entrepreneurs and your startups. And another one that also we identified is the ROC. You mentioned that we have 90 ROCs. Now, what's prohibiting or what's a hindrance there is, for your average RPL holder, they can only economically engage with an ROC holder. And now that really excludes a lot of RPL holders who really rely on what is coined now the gig economy, where they would be able to do work that doesn't come so frequently. And these independent service providers won't be able to really participate in the drone economy unless they're engaging with an organization that has an ROC. Those are the two factors that I wanted to speak on. And then I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Viresh.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Viresh Sadio. Can you guys see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Steph. Okay, so we've been talking about the drone regulations. Now, it was mentioned previously on last week's Drone Wednesday and by Chair, is regulation stifling innovation? And we've talked about regulations, but over and above that, once we ensure that our regulations, and if we're cheering that and we've got that framework going, how are we putting together a strategy for the country to grow the drone economy? And by enabling such mechanisms and a strategy, we need to pave the path forward in the short term, because as Chair had mentioned and Comrade Kubeka, from 2015, we were looking at this, and we need to hasten this implementation and grow this drone economy. So what enabling factors, such as a collaborative policy and framework, are we putting in place? What strategy are we putting in place for public and private corporations to participate in and hasten this growth? So that industry collaboration and that entrepreneurial efforts, as my previous speaker had mentioned as well, is needed to drive the economy. So what are we doing? Like innovation hubs. Are we creating innovation hubs? And yet again, how are these innovation hubs spurring that growth? Are we allowing research, proof of concepts, and are we allowing the wider allowing a wide economic participation in it as well? Now, it's not only for corporates, because corporates have enough money to operate an RC, have the pilots, have the quality inspections and the resources to man that. But for an individual entrepreneur, to open up a RFC and with the regulations, it can be quite expensive. If I, as an individual, want to be entrepreneurial and go into the drone economy, it's going to cost me. I'm going to have to look at investing my time with my pension just to get off the ground. And when do I actually get ROI? So how are incubation hubs allowing such entrepreneurs to come in? Is there a mechanism where we can allow them to bring their niche services in and allow them to grow within this innovation hub that spurs them to be able to get that money as well in a short term? Now, with wide economic participation, we can grow this, and we spoke about leapfrogging this industry as well as a 4IR technology. So an incubation hub, for example, with collaborative policies to foster wider industry growth would be ideal. Okay. I will hand over now to my colleague, Musani.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dumi Mwabe. So further to what Viresh has just spoken to, I think the point I wanted to talk to is also
Kindly unmute.
oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you. My name is Dumi Mwabe. So adding on to what Viresh has just covered now, I think I want to emphasize on the costs associated with obtaining the relevant licenses, which can be seen as a barrier, especially to SMMEs who are wanting to obviously get into the drone economy. And also another point is if you look at the drone technology, you will note that it is a multi-sectoral sort of so which means drones can be used in quite a number of industries. So slower adoption by targeted industries can also be a major hindrance with regards to the uptake of the drone economy. So so obviously we would like to see how we can get all these other industries to be more welcoming to this technology, so that we can see the uptake that we desire. Thank you. So I'm going to pass on to my colleague, Notando.
Good day, Chair. Good day, everyone. Thank you. Can you see me? I'm just waiting. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. Chair, I mean, as we've highlighted, we're looking from the economic inclusion and transformation process within the industry. What I would like to highlight is from a point of, as part of our research, is the academic component of publicizing and also inclusivity from a point of the academic side of it. And what we've come up with is a framework where one of the pillars that we're looking at is the education pillar. And what is a great example is of the UJ and TUT, the Tshwane University of Technology collaboration in terms of leading the AI Institute, which is a real great thruster in terms of curriculum development and ensuring that there's drone participation on a broader level, and really looking in terms of how do institutions actually ensure that from a academic perspective, preparing individuals to actually go into the industry. And that really needs to then also look in terms of the point of gender participation, and also persons with disabilities or differently abled persons, which I think from our research also, and just independent sort of reading, has been that is not an area that is yet sort of looked into. So yet again, we're going to have an industry booming, and we have a lagging sort of sector, which would be the women and well, gender, so to speak, and abled persons. So that is a critical factor that we need to also, that needs to be looked into and roped in. Then we have what we need to look in terms of the TVET colleges, and really because of the fact that TVET colleges, most locations of them are in underprivileged areas, being townships. How is that the uptake of the drone industry actually filtering down to those areas? So that's another critical area in terms of getting participation from an economic inclusion and transformation perspective that needs to then take place. And I mean, that question that we would then pose is, how is industry from both a private and a public and the academic institutions, how is this being ensured that the correct sort of cascading of information and curriculum development takes place? Then we have what would then come through as you have the graduates that would come out, to ensure that we don't just have graduates that then become unemployed because there's no sort of work opportunities. How is it that they are prepared to be entrepreneurs and enterprise developers? And from a point of, again, within the rural areas and township economy, contributing to the township economy, how is it that they are then prepared within the academic sector and within curriculum development? Then the last point in terms of looking from academic inclusion and development for the drone industry would be, it really starts at an early level. So from the early skills development age, where we know that children today are born as technological sort of wizards, but how is this then being translated into schools? And it's really great that the Department of Basic Education has now actually even taken up to include AI as part of curriculum development. But the question again becomes, what is happening within the township economy and within rural areas to ensure that the curriculum development does actually uptake and includes the development of children that are within this area, so that they are equipped for the next phase, which would be then the tertiary level of engagement towards the drone industry. So the key critical sort of factors that we'd look at is that in order to have individuals who are inclusive and participate within the economic transformation perspective for the drone industry, is that we need to really have it as a complete ecosystemic process within the academic sector. So I'd also pose to academics that we've got on the web today, on the webinar, to really unpack for us and help us to understand what is the processes that has been undertaken and what are the challenges also that you've faced and how are they being overcome. So Chair, that is our take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I back now? Yes. Okay, Madam. You have asked difficult questions, and before the speakers before the presenters indulge, I would just like to raise 3 issues, and then we'll come back to them after they're presented. You are speaking about the urgent need, or an almost compulsory need for the triangular collaboration, in being the drone industry, the government, so the public sector, the private sector, and academia, which is normally called the triple helix collaboration. and you are asking a question that you think it needs to be like that. But all of us are saying so. The objectives of the Drone Council are saying that one of the things we do is, one is massification, but two, industry collaboration, and we're talking about getting all stakeholders being included. So we will pose the question back to you at the end of this. They say, now that you have raised this, what do you think needs to happen? And we are meeting today here to say, we need to identify about 3 things that brings various players. There are those that are within the Drone Council as members. There are those that are our friends. There are those that are watching us and what constructive critics. But I would love to throw the challenge to you. Here's the question I'll ask you again after some 10 minutes. The Drone Council has the concept called the DRIC, Drone, call it DRIC Hub, the Drone Research, Innovation and Knowledge Hub. The DRIC Hub has about 5 universities that have come on board. Some have already signed, some are looking at the papers, but in the beginning of the new year, we will be ready to run with those. They've got to go through their systems. And the 2 institutions that you have mentioned that are currently collaborating, being UJ and TUT, are also on the table. So is the question I'm posing to you is, what do you think the DRIC Hub must do to address the questions? We have seen all the issues that you have raised. Our members have been raising them, and we said, let's establish this body of thought that asks the difficult questions, to be led by academics, but we'll have business, we'll have regulators, we'll have industry, we'll have civil society within it, but the leadership thereof, the thought leadership, will be based at institutions. So maybe identify for us that based on this, we'll summarize that if it is successful by next day, June, the DRIC should have achieved this 1, 2, 3 issues. So I'm throwing that, think about it in time, or summarize what you've said now to say, if we were to set semester goals, what is it that should have been achieved by June next year, and led by academia? The other issues that you've been raising about education being a pillar supports that. Drone technology being multi-sectoral, one of your colleagues raised it, yes. I'll come back to about the ROCs and the service license, and some of them are here today, but this is not to handpick them. Yes, it's 14:39. We have to move now. We will. You have raised your issues. We will come back to them. We'll also allow that the debate continues after the presentation. Mr. Ledley or Ms. Enslin, who goes first? Expectations have been put on the table. You have been thrown with the challenge. Mr. Ledley, it looks like you are by yourself. Just go ahead, Mr. Ledley.
Good day, Chair. Good day, everybody.
I can't see you.
I'm going to be sharing my screen, Chair, so the camera's not going to work at the same time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Chair, I'm going to
we are trying to put the screen on. The keyword that the Gibbs team threw to us was a complete ecosystem. Let's come back to that again, and beyond just this, what is a complete ecosystem? Go ahead, Mr. Ledley.
Okay, Chair, I thank everyone for their presentations and their challenging questions. I think we've got quite a few answers for you with regards to the points raised. The first one that I'd like to get into, because I think it's the most important from a strategic perspective, and that is getting into the education starting at young. This is a very valid point. I think the Department of Higher Education getting AI into the curricula is very, very important. I'd just like to make everyone aware, the challenge with the drone industry is you need to be 18 years old to get a drone license. All right, so that limits where the correct placement, in my view, is to get the children to adopt it in standard 6, 7, or no, grade, sorry, I'm old, grade 8 and 9, so they can see the benefits of doing mathematics as a subject for matric, and hopefully use that to encourage them to do it, because they can see the possibilities and that mathematics is an important subject moving forward. Secondly, what have we done as the Drone Council? We instituted and completed a program whereby the curricula, we did it in conjunction with MICT-CETA, where there is actually a drone diploma, a post-matric diploma. There is for drone pilots and for drone maintenance technicians. So that is currently awaiting approval at the National Qualifications Framework. And once that actually gets approved, then that is a public document, and we'll be able to issue a postgraduate diploma in the drone economy. That opens it up to answer the questions. Then the TVET colleges and the universities and that will be able to get it in as a pivotal recognized degree, and it will fit in a lot. It'll be a lot smoother for them to put it into their curricula, because it's not an outlier. The one issue with aviation is it's not normally accredited, so the varsities and the colleges have problems justifying why they are doing courses that don't measure their KPIs. Now, with regards to the challenge around the air service license, there is actually legislation in play. It's been in development for 2 or 3 years, possibly longer, which will negate the requirement for an air service license for drones under 25 kilos. So that is quite a substantial drone, but moving forward, and I don't know the timelines, sometimes these take longer, sometimes these take shorter. I think, Chair, you're more qualified to answer that than me, but that act has actually been drafted and is in the process. So that process is going to happen. Personally, I believe if you're flying a drone under over 25 kilograms, you do need an air service license, and you do need to have the money to take care of the safety aspects around flying such a big machine. With regards to the costs, most of that cost goes into maintaining your quality and your safety standards, and that is a very difficult one to short circuit, because at the end of the day, you must realize that this is aviation, and I'm sure you wouldn't be very pleased if you were driving along and a drone came through your car windscreen and you had a terrible accident and got injured. And then when you looked into it, it would be because the regulations were lowered to make it easier to get into. So that is the one hiccup that you do have to understand, that this is aviation. So you do have to, there's a certain international standard that you have to adhere to.
Excuse me, Mr. Ledley, they are asking is there a presentation coming up, or we are still answering the questions?
I'll move on to the presentation then, if the questions must be answered in.
No. If you are still answering the questions, yes. Because I'm reading on the screen here, and I think the answer is that he is still answering the questions. He's coming to the presentation.
Yes. I'm going to get into the presentation is about another process that we've done. So at this stage, I'm just answering the questions. With regards to the entrepreneurial requirement, and that is basically how we're going to leapfrog. There is a process in place that is the CAA and industry are working on quite closely together to open up an open category. So that will be for a sub 250 gram drone. You won't need an air service license or an ROC, and you'll be able to run your business using a drone of that size. So you won't be able to do big industrial work. You won't be able to do land surveying. However, you will be able to use it for lower risk operations. So that should be coming into law possibly towards the end of next year. And that is very positive, because that will unlock the entrepreneurial need. And once if you've got into the industry and you get your experience with inside the industry, then you would be one more credible for people to invest in, to move up to get an ROC, or to, and you'll know exactly how the industry works, because you'll have the expertise and experience. What we find is it is very expensive to get an ROC, and a lot of people work for 2-3 years to get that ROC, and then they realize that that's just the license. They then have to go and find the business, and it is an exceptionally competitive market, and the uptake from corporates and government isn't where it could be. So although you spend all the money to get to be the ROC, you are the lowest one on the rung of 90 ROCs that are incumbents. So it is extremely challenging. I'm going to just touch on the inclusiveness of women and youth, etc., etc. Currently, that isn't the primary challenge, because currently the business is so small. It's hard to find positions for experienced pilots at this stage. So what we've been focusing on is to open up the regulations, put the structures in place. We managed to get it put on the scarce skills list, so it'll be prioritized by the SETAs. The SETAs are running according to their KPIs, and they have trained hundreds of pilots, and their representative figures will reflect in their reports. So there are a lot of women that are actually being trained, but I think the biggest priority is to open up the industry so that through regulations, through the open category, so that they can actually start running SMMEs instead of having jobs with ROCs. Is there any questions that I have missed out?
Proceed, sir. If there is anything, they will write on the chat.
Okay. This is a process that we've been running, the Drone Council. This is all about collaboration, and this is how change is made. I'm just going to explain to you that it isn't easy. It's not just writing a letter. But the main thing that I have to say is everyone's very quick to get onto webinars or on social media and say, this is wrong, that is wrong, the next thing is wrong. But you need to put your money where your mouth is, or your time where your mouth is, because the regulator regulates the regulations. So it is up to individuals to find out how to get your voice heard and how to participate. Because if there isn't if there's only 1 or 2 people saying that this is a problem, well then, you know, the regulator, as within any industry, will look and say, well, how big a problem is it? Can't be that big. There's only 2 people talking about it. So people need to get involved and engaged, right? If you want your voice heard, you can't just, you need to get it heard, all right? So this is more of a, when there's public consultations, people need to get involved, right? You need to show up and you need to say, this is my problem. I want to start a business and I can't because of these reasons. Because the regulator and the Department of Transport don't scan webinars to find out what's going on. They look at reports that they get. Right, now to give you an idea of the challenges, well, not the challenges, this is how law is made. This is the program that I went through last week. I'm going to do a lot quicker version, but we did this in conjunction with CASA, which is the Commercial Aviation Association of South Africa, and ATOSA, which is the Association of Aviation Training Organizations of South Africa. And we went through, what we did is we did the research, we wrote the regulations how we wanted them, and then we submitted them to the regulatory process. All right, we did. Now, we engaged with universities, government, non-government organizations, non-profits. We engaged with SOEs, trying to find out their challenges, and vocational colleges, the TVET colleges, etc. When we discussed with the TVET colleges, that's where we came up with the idea of the syllabi. So that'll enable uptake from that point of view. So we did a root cause analysis as to say, why is the industry not growing? So we discovered that there's basically, the regulations are hard to understand. There's a lack of clarity. There's no regulations that give guidance from one career path to the next, how you move from a junior pilot to a senior pilot to a VTOL pilot to an instructor to a designated examiner. And that was quite challenging, because it was everybody you spoke to gave you a different opinion. So, and then a lot of the regulations were in technical guidance material. So we took the time and we wrote the regulations. I think it's about a 25-page document, and in total we calculated we've got about 1,400 man-hours in this document. So this is the pathway. Every single one of these is a meeting that had to take place, and in between the meetings we readjusted the document, took all the inputs, made the adjustments, made it more workable. So the first port of call is the Civil Aviation Regulatory Committee. And we went there and gave our suggestions, our submission, and they agreed with it and sent it to a subcommittee because it needed to get a lot more work done on it. Then we engaged work groups back to the subcommittee, more work groups back to the subcommittee. Now, the subcommittee was just there to give us guidance and just see we were on the right track so we didn't go down in the wrong direction. There's a bunch of other work groups. There is actually something called the Drone Industry Liaison Forum. We took it to that forum. It's not part of the official process, but we did it out of courtesy. And we also wanted the inputs from the industry that was there. We then went to the work groups, back to the ASO subcommittee. Then it was published for comment. Then it went back to CARCOM, Civil Aviation Regulatory Committee. That's where we got to. So in total, that is 18 formal meetings. Now, what happened in the publishing phase is we got some feedback from industry players. I don't think it's major issues that they raised, so we will be dealing with it. In fact, I've got a meeting tomorrow on just to iron out a few wrinkles that they put forward. And then we will be back to CARCOM either later this month or in January. If all goes well, these regulations will be published and will be made into law. And that was a 2-year process. So although everyone can say things are not moving fast enough, etc., unfortunately, and anybody who's worked with government knows that to change regulations and to change laws does take time. The good news for the industry and for the country is that under the chair's leadership, we started this process 2.5 years ago. So we feel we've done the research. We saw these problems that are being identified now. We identified them 2.5 years ago. And this is our answer to opening the industry up. This will bring clarity, this will bring certainty, this will make it easier for investment to come into the industry because they know exactly how it works. It's not such a gray area anymore. Chair, so what I'd like to just impress upon everyone is that all of these meetings don't happen in a vacuum. These meetings are open to the public. So the members, the pilots, the people that want to come in are welcome to attend these meetings, because currently you have 90 operators and they have a vested interest. You want to enter this industry. They are not going to champion your cause of getting into the industry and being their competition. That's just human nature. So there's a liaison forum, attend it. There's workshops, attend it. That's all I can say. It's one thing to look at the regulator, look at government and say what's going on. You need to look into yourselves and say, well, what are you doing about it? Thank you, Chair. I'll take any further questions.
I want to start with your last paragraph or your last 2 minutes. And I want to challenge the House. In South Africa, we love seeing that things are not going right. We love criticizing. In fact, some of the studies say the problem with drone regulations or with the drone industry is like many other highly regulated industry or industries where government is going to play, that the private sector or civil society does not participate in either the development or the amendment of regulations. Only when these get published or when these get amended, they realized only then that they were sleeping on the job. Then they start to try and litigate, or they start writing newspaper articles and complaining about how these regulations are not inclusive, how these regulations have left these people out, how they will affect how they will erode the tax base, and so on and so on. But in South Africa, let's all accept, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a very, very poor culture of civil society activism. Civil society is not active. Then I'm taking Mr. Lately's point and merging it with Ms. Mohadime's point. At one level, she was saying business, academia, and industry, also industry, government, and academia should come together. That's called the triple helix collaboration. But you add one leg, which is civil society, it becomes the quadruple helix. I want to ask to engage on that. Go back to those 2 slides and say, this is what has been done. There's been about 45 meetings. These are all public meetings. And you should have participated, but you did not. Every time when you make comments on Facebook, on Twitter, on WhatsApp, you are complaining about what is wrong about it. But when the meetings are called to say what needs to be done or what about it, you do not participate. Therefore, my direct question to the House, taking from Ms. Mohadime and Mr. Lately's last points about participation, is that are we really serious about wanting to achieve economic inclusion? Are we really serious about making the space to participate and to change things? Or are we really taking the space that, for an example, organizations like the Drone Council are putting up? We put these platforms. There is a meeting tomorrow, he says. There is a meeting Friday. There have been 20 or 40 meetings that have been taking place. But probably it's a question of information. Therefore, Mr. Lately, let's start there. Let's bring it down to Mother Earth. What is it that new drone entrepreneurs need to do to participate and be heard? What is it that industry needs to do to be heard? What is it that academia needs to do and be heard? Or what is it that all of them needs to do together, starting from January or starting from tomorrow? because the Drone Council is mobilized. We've got 10 chambers who've been doing this. But in most of these discussions, we do the South African thing. You have not done this. So the question is that what is to be done if we must make a difference? And the question is directed to you, but to the House as well. Thank you. You start, Mr. Ledley, and then I'll throw the question back to the Gibbs team to say, what do they think needs to be done by people who see what could possibly be wrong in 2 years' time, and if it's not done now, and what do they suggest needs to be done? Then anyone in the House could participate. It's 15:02. We will take the next 10 minutes discussing the question of what is the best way of making inputs and to be heard. What an easy question, but difficult one. What needs to be done? Mr. Lately, you go first.
Thank you, Chair. The challenge here is when the government and the regulator asks industry and civil society a question, everyone's too busy getting on with their own lives and their own problems to actually give a correct, thought through answer. I'm sure the Gibbs team in their research got a lot of answers that were glib and weren't comprehensive. And that's just the nature of the quality of the feedback you get. So what I'd like to put forward to everyone, it's very easy to say, oh, the government doesn't know what they're doing. But then you need to just ask yourself, how do you expect them to know if you don't tell them your issues? So that is the first point. So, you know, as members of the Drone Council, we will publish these public meetings. You are welcome to attend. They are public meetings, all right? Anyone can stand and anyone can talk. And what I would suggest is you get involved, you attend the meetings, and you explain your stories. I can't explain your stories as well as you can explain your stories because they're your stories. We've done the research and we can put it through from a research academic point of view, but that doesn't carry through the emotion and the human cost and the real opportunities that you feel you're missing out. Now, you know, I put it to the audience, inclusion and transformation. You don't need to transform the drone industry. The drone industry is so small. It's at its genesis. So all you need to do is grow it. But you're not going to grow an industry by standing on the sidelines and throwing stones. If you want to grow it and you're serious about growing the industry, you need to show up and you need to make your voice heard. Yeah, that's all I have to say, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. From the side of the Drone Council, we shall make this historical statement that today, being International Civil Aviation Day 2022, we commit to those who are in this house and to those who will be listening thereafter, that through all our social media platforms, we shall publicize all these meetings that are necessary for civil society to participate. I will therefore ask our social media team to, in the next 2 minutes, put all our the links to all our social media platforms, our Instagram platform, our Facebook platform, our YouTube platform, and invite anyone who's not a member of the Drone Council to go to the Drone Council and click on the right-hand side, the link that says Join Council. It's open to anyone who's here. And therefore say, instead of asking this question again, we should accept that we've been doing typical South African things to complain, but we have not taken steps. Therefore, when you say economic inclusion, let it start with social inclusion. Let it start with conversation in inclusion. I will repeat this very slowly, and I'll repeat and repeat. It says, if you want to change the narrative, please change the dialogues now. I repeat, if you want to change the narrative, please change the dialogues now. We therefore challenge everyone in this house and anyone who will be listening that as the Drone Council, we are altering the dialogues and opening them, that they are yes with the members of the Drone Council and any person who's interested in the drone industry. That is the job of the Drone Council. When in 2020 we launched Catch Up 2023, we all thought it was too far. But ladies and gentlemen, today being the 7th of December, we are just 23 days to 2023. So in a month's time, we will be talking, this is what we are focusing on doing when we said Catch Up 2023. So that is what we will be doing. So go to all our platforms. Our team is our teams are very, very busy. Please participate, subscribe to all of those and participate with us. Ask us all those questions. That's difficult questions. We'll have all those conversations as you see them. Okay, that is our contribution. I have seen questions on the platform. Okay, thank you. The team will be loading the other links. For now, I'm going to Mr. Sfiso Konyane. His question was that how does regulation go for drones that are readily available on the market, but not really registered with CAA or be operated by a person with an RPL? I repeat, how does regulation go for drones that are readily available on the market, but not really registered with CAA or be operated by a person without an RPL? I'll go for this one, Mr. Sifiso Konyane. We have a challenge. We've got about 350,000 to 400,000 unlicensed drones in South Africa. And if after this I discover it's your birthday, I can walk now to Macro and buy you a drone for 25,000 rand and give it to you, you'll be owning the drone by 8 o'clock this evening. That's it. And then you start playing with it. And the issue then starts. If after playing with it, you discover that this is not a toy, because a drone is a toy, a drone is a tool, a drone is an aircraft. If I suddenly tell you at 9 o'clock that, hey, this is not just a toy, hey, this is a tool in an aircraft, then this weekend you start now operating events. You go to the farm next door. We are using the drone. You're operating. The farm is paying you to count his cattle or his goats. You are now in business. We are operating a drone without an RPL. You are no longer just playing. It's not like your son who was playing with the drone. You are now operating. That's now a commercial operation. As of August last year, there was nothing called a charge code by the police. Some communities in the area of Hillcrest in KZN, between Pietermaritzburg and Durban, last December, they had an issue about drones because there were drones that were hovering in their area, about 2 drones. They didn't know what they were. They were complaining about this nuisance. They were complaining about privacy issues. They were complaining about safety issues. They went to the police station in Hillcrest and they met with the police after several complaints, and the police, sorry, there's nothing we can do. We do not have a charge code. Maybe escalate this matter with the civil aviation. That was before August this year. But as of second semester of this year, there's now a charge code. Police can now, if you're operating a drone without an RPL and without the drone being RLA'd, the police can take you up. Now the next question arises. Do the police have the capacity to do it? We went and met with the police. They say, we know all these things. We've just heard of them. It's still a rumor. So many hundreds and thousands of police are supposed to be doing it, but we do not have capacity. So we've got a policy and strategy problem. I'll go, I think it was Vinesh who said, Once we are doing all of these things, we need a strategy framework for the country. We need to look at the issue of innovation, but within a national strategy. Truth of the matter is that regulations, yes, are there, but the issues about how to harmonize and how to massify and how to ensure that we correct the wrongs of the past are not yet in place. I'm throwing this back to the House. The question is that, what do you think should be our focus? What would be the top 3 things that we should be focusing on in the new year to deal with your issues? It's nice to throw problems. Kindly throw some solutions to us. Let's have a conversation. It can't be the presenters only talking. I am opening this to the floor now about you have raised issues, or maybe let me ask the next question, then throw it to the floor. The next question is coming from, Yosha says, speaking as an RPL holder, this is great news. That is the issue about the new regulations. Thank you. Futi says, I appreciate the response on transformation and the present size of the industry, but that is even the best time to do things right from the beginning and make it the industry's mantra to be inclusive and to drive such a transformation agenda. I'll ask you, Futi, how? Tell us what must be transformed, when, by who, how. Mr. Lately says the best time is now to grow the industry in a transformational manner. Yes, I hear you guys, all of you, and ladies and gentlemen. The question is that, is it time to slice the cake or is time to grow the cake? I repeat, is it time to slice the cake for everyone or is time to grow the cake? Thank you. Let me throw it to the House. I've asked questions, and can we have a conversation for the next 10 minutes or so, then we can wrap up. It's an open mic. You can raise your hand. You can, oh yes. Oh, I see the hands. The hands that are on, here is Notando's hand, and anyone can speak after Notando. Go ahead, madam.
Chair, thank you. I'd like to go to Sean's point about the industry not necessarily needing transformation, but inclusion. And for me, I'd beg to differ on that. I think if we look at just a simple example of the number of ROCs being held versus the number of RPLs, and looking from a women's perspective, we know that the number is higher within the RPLs and within the ROCs, whether it's enterprises themselves or on the ASL side also. The numbers are very few in terms of looking at women participation in that area. So I think there still needs to be a big driving force around transformation within the industry itself also. We can say in terms of the fact that it's a rosy outlook to say we don't need transformation. And I think for the state of the country, it's not just saying that we are wanting easier sort of regulations from a point of view of inclusivity, because we understand that safety is a key factor, but we need to also be cognizant of the fact that transformation agenda needs to stay on the agenda to ensure that there is complete sort of 360 inclusivity. And it's also from a point of saying that when we look at inclusivity within the industry versus transformation, exactly what you were saying, Chair, is are we growing the cake or are we slicing the cake? And it's a bit of both that needs to take place. So in order to slice the cake, you need to have to grow the cake. And that's exactly the point about ensuring that transformation does stay part of the agenda. And I think also because we're looking at the aerospace industry, the costs that are involved in terms of being a participant within the industry itself, whether we're looking from a race perspective or a gender perspective or a physicality point of view, looking at persons with differently abled persons, is that we do need to ensure that we do keep the transformation agenda on the table. So that's just my response to Mr. Lidley.
If I can respond, Chair?
Yes, please go ahead. I am noting also other people that
Okay.
have raised their hand. Yeah.
Please You misunderstood me. I didn't say transformation wasn't important. I didn't say it shouldn't be on the agenda. What I was trying to allude to is that transformation tends to come with connotations of BEE, share swaps, etc., etc. Now, this industry is very new. We were the first to get regulations, and we have 90 ROCs. The UK's regulations were after ours. And it's got the same population. It's got over 20,000 ROCs. So what I was alluding to wasn't the fact that transformation shouldn't be on the agenda. What I was alluding to that if you grow the industry, the structures are already in place to allocate the resources, the training into the transformational industry. You have the PMFA, you have the BEE codes, you have the TETAs with their codes. So you don't need to put any more regulations to transfer the industry. You just need to open the gates and let the current codes go through. Secondly, with regards to women in the industry, there is a need, all right? But that needs to be addressed at school level and through awareness campaigns, because unfortunately, there are more men that apply than women that apply. That's just the reality of it. So I believe that needs to be addressed at school level to help women understand, young women understand that there is this whole industry that is open to them, because it's from a, there's nothing excluding women from participating. There's just less women applying, and that is the biggest challenge, because there is no requirement for heavy lifting or anything like that. So you can't point that this is a man's job. And I'm not being sexist. I'm just trying to create a point there. So
thank you.
It boils down to awareness.
Lawyers tell you less is more. The more you try to explain yourself, you might end up implicating yourself. So far, you have not. Don't continue. It's fair. Stop here. There are two other people. Thank you, Mr. Ledley. Thank you, Notando. There are two other hands. I see Futi's iPad. I see Viresh. In that order.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I will not be able to say a whole lot of things here about some of the exciting, from where I sit, exciting things that include this industry, you know, from the background I have and some of the discussions that we're having with the government. But I can tell you this much, that if we don't embrace, now I want to address, I know that I think it's Sean or someone who responded to my chat note, that yes, they're in agreement. And then the last speaker just said there's nothing excluding women, you know, they just need to be there and show up, etc. Let me say this, you know, when people have been on the back foot, you know, most of the time like women, it gets, you know, it becomes an issue for those that are in the forefront to pull them along, to bring them along. Let's have something to deal with. And, you know, some programs to then say, we're bringing them consciously, because transformation is not an event. It's not, I don't know, it's not an ever present. You actually make a conscious decision to say, you know, I know that it's not easy for where I am even right now, but because I want to bring in women, I want to bring in, you know, youth, I want to bring in people with disabilities, I am going to find, you know, positions or possibilities for them and drive them and promote these towards them and say, you can do this, go for it, you actually can do it. This is where we are as a society in this country and in general, you know, even outside this country, where we have got to make these conscious decisions to bring in, you know, the people that have not generally participated in what we're talking about. And now that was just me addressing that issue. And I just want us to know that we here, and I know that there are some young people some of whom are women, that I just said, you have to join the Drone Council, because, you know, it may not make sense for now because you're new to it, but it's going to make sense, that it needs you to bring in your perspective so they can understand also the issues that are from your perspective that are sort of excluding you. And I know they are.
Okay, Ms. Zigalala, I
The
am
last
not. No, you will stop. You will talk. I just want you to, as you close, I want to add something else. I will want to challenge Ms. Futhi Zagalala, who's one of the secretaries of the chambers, to add at the end of her talk. How do you apply? How has the mining sector dealt with this issue? I'm talking about your industry, so I want us to bring it home. You've been in the mining industry and as a lawyer for many years. How will you relate the utterances here we're talking and the complaints? How has the mining industry dealt with the issue of economic inclusion? That is to Futhi. That's a question to Futhi. To Notando, she is a diver, a professional diver. And when she got there, they were dealing with the same issues. Please talk to us about how has that industry, scuba diving or diving industry, dealt with economic inclusion issues. If we take that and benchmark for about 1 minute, then we're able to say, this is what this discussion is about. So I'm not stopping you and saying, so I'm saying, once you have finished, say, lastly, I'll now relate to my industry. That's all I was stopping you for. Then after that, Notanda will come in, then Viresh will talk, and then we'll move to us closing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was just saying, you know, the first point I started with was more from the aviation sector and some of the exciting things. At least they're exciting to me because I can, for this industry, but also for the young people that we've brought in and more that will still need to come in. There are things that are exciting that are coming, and I'm just glad that some of the conversations away from the Drone Council are actually including the drone economy and the drone industry. So when I'm at liberty to share more, I will definitely share more, but certainly not today. But I can just tell you that there are exciting, you know, things that are coming up, and we are being talked about at the right levels and by the correct people as well. Now, to just speak to the question that have been asked, I've been with the mining industry for many, many years. And I know that, you know, obviously in 2002, when we came up with the MPRDA, I was right at the center of it as well. You know, as a senior employee, well, there in the department. And in order for us to then say this industry has been too closed to not just Black people in terms of ownership and being right at the helm, but also in terms of, you know, participating, making decisions and being there in the coalface and in boardrooms and in ownership. We actually, you know, went all the way and came up with the mining charter. Of course, the mining charter has been challenged. And, you know, the challenges are not about the core issues of the mining charter, but about the issues of how you implement. So we can learn many lessons there. And had we not consciously said in the mining space, we're not going to license, you know, anybody that is not, you know, a Black person or a woman or a young person, without them including those people consciously. And so it was in the licensing space that we said, we will license if you do this. And we also went further to say, well, you've got to do more, even with local communities, even within that, you still have to make sure that there are women. We set targets for women, you know, whether at board level, at management, etc. We said, you've got to grow, because if you don't actually just set those parameters and those terms and say they've got to be met, you know, the industry will just continue as was before, because then no one is actually saying something. And now if you're in government, like we were, like, you know, in government at the time, it was not easy, but we had the tool to actually make it happen. And the industry today, the mining industry today, would not be what it looks like. It's still not the ideal picture that we were idealistically picturing, you know, in 2001, 2002. But we've moved mountains to be where we are today. And you see the proliferation of women and young people owning and running mines and just making decisions, about the mining industry as well. So this is what I participated in, Chairman, and these are some of the things that we can do. And obviously there are others that are more creative and more maybe today things than the way that we took it upon ourselves to actually be that aggressive about inclusivity at that point in time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. That was the mining benchmark. Let's go to the diving benchmark from Lutando. How is the industry dealt with that?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just give congratulations to the previous speaker, Futi, to just say, in terms of highlighting that transformation is not an event, but it needs conscious effort and continuous effort at that. I think that perfectly surmises in terms of what the ethos and mantra needs to be for these kind of sectors, whether it's mining or as for me in terms of diving industry, which would then be the ocean economy, and really opening up to the broader sort of perspective, prospects. And for us, as an organization, we have trained over our existence over 164 Black youth to go into the industry, either as recreational or commercial divers. And this is a huge achievement for an institution that actually went into the industry as the first sort of pioneering Black entity, creating training, recruiting and training and job placement of youth. So, I mean, it's been a solo kind of process, and it has been challenging, but what it has meant is that we have been able to be at the forefront, to be able to participate within discussions and formulate in terms of ways of how do we make the industry more inclusive. It's still in a conversation that is still taking place. From a women's participation point of view, looking at the youth that we've trained, 50% of them have been women. And that's because of a conscious effort that is put into the recruitment process. And it is really about creating the next sort of level of that. What we're now looking at, the drive is not just to create graduates who are then going into the employment pipeline, but rather entrepreneurial sort of enterprise development. Because when we look at dive centers around the country, at the moment, we're sitting with a 98% ownership, white ownership of industry, and that being male, white male. And that's a narrative that needs to change. There's absolutely no question about it. It's a narrative that needs to change. And it really begins with, from a policy perspective, but the policy then cascading down into implementation, and not a rigmarole that then has to then take place over a 10-year sort of change cycle. It's something that, in order to get more inclusivity within the ocean economy participation, it's a conscious effort that needs to take place in terms of the different sort of tentacles that participate within the ocean economy, of which diving is one, and as a big contributor also to the tourism industry.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted the ladies to take a different angle to make one point. That yes, there are problems within aviation. Yes, there are problems within the drone economy, but it is a South African problem, and that everyone sitting here and all those that are participating in this event that attended last week, we can't be pedestrians to these discussions. We should be active participants. We cannot talk about this as if it is a drone economy only issue. But those industries that have shown, that have displayed it here, they are simply saying we could have remained 90, like you are, 90 ROCs or 120 ATOs, but a few drone schools, etc., etc. But we had to fold our sleeves and got into it and dealt with it. And the Drone Council is focused on achieving this through the programs that we are having, and we'll be engaging with yourselves to ensure that we are really, Operation Catch Up 2023 has moved from speeches and planning, but to just getting the top 3 to 5 things that have got to be done. Viresh, your hand must be now very sore. It's been up for more than 30 minutes. Please speak, Viresh.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I'm going to change direction slightly, but to answers the statements that Sean had made from some of the perspective that I shared, he did say that, you know, for a drone that's less than 25 kg that you're going to operate, you won't require an ASL, an air service license, and also, you know, for entrepreneurs, for sub 2050 kg drones, you won't need an ASL and an ROC. So that is being reviewed by the CAA at the moment. And, you know, should this get passed, it's a great boon for the industry, right, for the drone economy. But, you know, leveraging off that, what strategy are we putting in place to hasten that? You know, the regulation is passed, but is the industry going to assert this and now start do POCs, research, and thereafter operationalize them? So how can we spur this innovation? And you spoke about the DRIC Hub, and you know, with the DRIC Hub, is there an innovation hub that we also have that we can leverage off to spur the research and POCs? And for the wider economy, yes, yeah, corporates, but also entrepreneurs, because now this also now feeds back into the previous statements mentioned by the ladies. Now, if we have these POCs, they're going to be operationalized into business. Now you have a revenue stream that needs to be resourced, and there's a talent pipeline that corporates actually need to feed into. And there's where that transformation objective can be achieved as well. Now, that is something that we can allow the transformation to, you know, hasten it with this innovation hub at least. So that's my perspective.
Okay. Mr. Ledley will be the last person to respond, then I'll close. It's 15:33. We were targeting 90 minutes. We're now at 93 minutes. So we should be closing so that you don't run away from us. May I request that for the next 3 minutes, as we are closing, all of you please go to the chat room. Just answer one question. What are the issues that you think our next, just make suggestions about what our next webinars should focus on. We will take the top 3 and we will prioritize those. Just right. Just tabulate the issues that you want our Drone Wednesday webinars to focus on. We'll take your views. Just write them on the chat. Mr. Ledley, please respond to any of these comments, then I will close. Or anybody, I don't see any hand before you. Any other hand? I'm counting up to 3. Going once, going twice, going thrice. Okay, there is no other hand. Mr. Ledley, your last comments. And maybe people just type, please.
My comments are the skills pipeline. We've addressed that through the diploma that we're going to be introducing, that is already up for that is already about to be recognized by the SAQA. So that is how we look after the skills pipeline. The CETAs have all of the structures in place and are extremely keen, yet cautious, but keen to develop the pipeline within a transformational manner, and they have their requirements for each product, but they are ready and willing to fund it. So just I wasn't dismissing transformation. I was just saying the most pressing point at this stage is to open the gates, open the spigot, and let it grow. And as it's growing, then get in and start transforming it and putting the resources where you want the biggest growth to occur. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this session today as we're celebrating the International Civil Aviation Day on the 7th of December 2022. We will have our last one for the year next Wednesday, 2 o'clock. I do believe that there will be many people coming, many people, because some will now be relaxed at home. We will tell you what the topic is. We will, today is Wednesday, by Friday we'll already be advertising next week's event. Please check all our platforms. Go to the chats just now and please write what you think you should be addressing. But my closing remarks are as follows. Issues that came today was that, yes, we need transformation, but we must unpack what those things are. You are part of helping us, the top 5 things that we'll do next year. Keywords that came out today was economic inclusion. Will be going ahead to unpack that. A key issue that came was a complete ecosystem. Keywords that came out was, okay, let's get a triple helix collaboration, industry, government, and academia. But there's other issues about what needs to be discussed with, what needs to be negotiated or debated or presented to the regulators and the Service Licensing Council. And having said that, I will just go through the chats. The issues that are being suggested is that further skills possibilities, promotion of the industry into the market and among all of South Africa, including transformational issues. Yes, we will deal with the issue of skills. We'll unpack those. We did make a contribution, by the way, to the skills, scarce skills white paper some 2 years ago. We can talk to you about that. Somebody is saying, what are we as South Africa doing differently compared to other countries? For example, the UK, as Mr. Lately mentioned, that's hindering the growth and transformation of the industry. Yes, Mr. Osman, we will have a webinar that just talks about benchmarking. We have enough research there in terms of what other countries are doing that will tell us what are we doing wrong and what others are doing right. Tando says, I agree with Mr. Little, transformation and inclusivity need to go hand in hand to yield the results that we're wanting to achieve within the drone industry and other industries as well. Yes. Bowen goes, particularly here in Mpumalanga, the drones can do a lot of work combating border criminality. I will answer you as follows, Mr. Bowen Kosi. The Drone Council has got 10 chambers and anyone can participate. We asked ourselves this question in 2020. Do we start by forming the chambers and getting the structures to gel first, or do we go provincially? And where we are at now, we are ready to say, if there's enough people in a particular province and they want to be a chapter, they can. Just like some universities have said, university students or graduates have said, here at West, there's many of us who are doing masters and PhD and so on, supported by the Drone Council, but we want to have a Drake chapter at West. We said, sure, go ahead if you're ready. In Mpumalanga, some councillors, you will know Ms. Lucy Kirk, who's one of the community leaders in Komazi. She, whenever we post information, she circulates it around the communities of Mpumalanga who are at the border of Mozambique and Swaziland, and they are saying exactly that. There is a, here in these areas of Komazi, we have 2 countries, Swaziland and Mozambique, and we believe that we can use drones to combat border criminality. So take the challenge. Take the challenge, Mr. Bowen Kosi, and with the leadership that's there, we can have a chapter there that is focusing on a particular area. That's how the Drone Council grows. It responds to as the needs are. So the answer is yes, we are ready like yesterday. I will close now, colleagues, and say thank you very much. Check our platforms. We are meeting again on the 14th, next Wednesday. That will be the last one for the year. 2 o'clock on Wednesday, our last Drone Wednesday event will happen. Thanks for attending. You have been very consistent, like all the days people said throughout here. Thank you very much to all the speakers. Oh, no, but the GIBS team brought a lot of people. Can I get one of you to just give us your closing remarks and as we wish you Christmas. Thank you very much, Team GIBS. Can one of you just give closing remarks, then we're over. Team GIBS, are you all gone now?
Yeah, it's correct. I'll give some closing remarks. And I thank you for that opportunity for the team to have a say on the Drone Council. It's interesting to see that there are many individuals interested in hastening and progressing the industry. Sean's input and what has been on the go at the moment has been great, and it certainly is good to see that we're progressing, and we are excited about them, and hopefully we're hoping to make a contribution to this forum in the future as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have been alerted by Mr. Etienne Lange that he had a problem with the button, the join now button. I promised everyone that's here that we'll have a 24 hours turnaround. You can, in the next 24 hours, check the click now button. I think it was a small glitch that was already fixed. It might be earlier than that, but please, all of you, after tomorrow afternoon, just join the Drone Council if you have not done so. Then you can write to us. Our email addresses are easy, really. You can write to membership@dronecouncil.africa. Or you can write to me. My name is IRVIN as my name at the bottom, @dronecouncil.africa, or Mr. Sean Lately, SHAUN. But if you want to be safe, just write to membership@dronecouncil.africa. Thank you very much. Those that will join us next week, we'll wrap up the year. Those that will not be joining us, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you in January as full members of the Drone Council. Thank you. Bye. This event is closed. So the other email address is comms. We will end the meeting, but I'll stop now. You can just check all the email addresses on the chat. It's comms@dronecouncil.africa. or membership@dronecouncil.africa. You can raise any issue, your suggestions, your complaints, your comments on those two email addresses, at comms or at membership. Thank you, bye, ladies and gentlemen. This was nice being with you again on our Drone Wednesday events. See you next week, Wednesday, 2 p.m. May you stop the recording, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank
May you
you,
stop the
Chairman.
recording?